Sarah found a superhero action figure in her DINK husband Ethan's pocket. The moment she pulled it out, lines of reader comments floated above her head. Iconic scene. Sarah's about to throw a fit over this toy, consumed by suspicion. She won't have kids herself but stops the male lead. Serves her right to be left with nothing. Waiting for Chloe to make her grand entrance with triplets to save the day. Sarah held the toy, walked over to him as he cooked, and quietly asked, "Why do you have this in your pocket? You don't even work in pediatrics." Ethan and Sarah were a DINK couple, a superhero action figure, a toy only kids liked, would never be found in their home. Ethan heard Sarah's question and naturally dried his hands. "Oh, this. When I was leaving work, I ran into a mother and her son. The little boy kept insisting on calling me dad. Eventually, he wouldn't let up, so I played with him for a bit. Leo must have put this in my pocket. If I see him tomorrow, I'll return it." At that moment, lines of reader comments floated past. "What? That's your child, Ethan? Did you forget the frozen sperm at the cold storage facility? Chloe accidentally used yours." "Leo? Ethan's child?" Sarah clutched the superhero action figure, suppressing the urge to question him, and feigned nonchalance. "Oh, is that so? I happen to be free tomorrow. I'll go with you. It'll be a good chance to see what the child looks like, and why he mistook you for his dad." Ethan looked at Sarah in surprise. "Didn't you say you had a business trip recently? Why don't I take a few days off and we can go on vacation? A hospital is full of patients. There's nothing fun about it." Reader comments floated past once more. "Oh no, Ethan, you're caring about the wrong person. If doesn't go to work tomorrow, how will Chloe bring the child to see him? How will they deepen their father-son bond? And she's not causing a scene? Didn't they say she bites like a mad dog whenever kids are mentioned?" That last sentence was indeed typical of Sarah's usual behavior, but didn't want them to guess her intentions so easily. "No need. I don't have anything else to do anyway, and I can bring some gifts for your colleagues." Ethan gently pinched Sarah's cheek. "You're so sweet, honey. Even with work being so busy, you're still thinking about my social interactions." He leaned down and kissed the corner of Sarah's lips, then went back to cooking. Sarah wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, and the reader comments immediately started cursing her, calling her shameless. But for married couples with a certificate, intimate contact was perfectly legal. Who were they to say Sarah was delusional? For 5 years of marriage, Ethan had always been good to Sarah. Whenever he had free time, he would hardly ever let Sarah into the kitchen. He also did all the cleaning himself. By the time he finished up in the kitchen, Sarah had already emerged from the bathroom, wearing her newly bought pajamas. His eyes lit up, and his dishwashing motion sped up considerably. By the time he finished showering and getting ready, Sarah was almost asleep in bed. But after more than a month apart, just as things were heating up, Ethan's phone rang. "The plot that was supposed to happen tomorrow has been moved up. Leo accidentally ate mango and had an allergic reaction. Chloe rushed him to the hospital, and since the pediatricians were busy, Ethan had to take over." This is Ethan's first time suspecting Leo is his own child. After all, mango allergies can be hereditary. "I can't wait for the day father and son reunite." Sarah's hand, resting on his abdominal muscles, froze. So, this was a call from the hospital. Even if Ethan avoided that mother and son, would the plot still find another way to unfold? The call ended, and Ethan guiltily took Sarah's hand. "There's a child at the hospital with an acute allergic reaction, and the pediatricians are all busy, so they need me to go check on the situation right away. I'll make it up to you when I get back." Sarah chuckled. "It's fine. I'll go with you, after all." Sarah was also curious to see just how much that child resembled Ethan. She wouldn't lose face, even if she was losing ground. Sarah told Ethan to go to the hospital first. After he left, Sarah began to get ready. What is Sarah doing? Putting on makeup in the middle of the night? Is she going to meet some other man? A woman who doesn't respect herself like this deserves public shaming. Besides, Ethan can only belong to Chloe. Sarah ignored the reader comments. A bunch of beasts who only knew how to stand on high ground and slander Sarah. Looking at her refreshed reflection in the mirror, Sarah unhurriedly headed towards the hospital. She arrived at just the right time. She just happened to see a woman in a white dress clinging to Ethan, crying as if her heart would break. "Dr. Ethan, if it weren't for you, I truly wouldn't know what to do. Leo is my only child. Thankfully you were here." Sarah stood at the doorway, arms crossed, watching the so-called Chloe. Chloe clearly saw Sarah. yet showed no intention of maintaining a respectful distance. Instead, she puffed out her chest and moved even closer to Ethan. When he noticed Sarah's presence, he abruptly stood up. Sarah, don't misunderstand. This is the mother of the child with the allergy. She's a bit overly emotional. Ethan walked towards Sarah, explaining as he came. Afraid she might overthink it, the gratitude on the woman's face turned into awkwardness. Soon, the child in the hospital bed started calling out for Dad. Ethan quickly turned back, gently patting the boy's shoulder. Sarah walked into the room, looking down at the so-called Leo. Her faint suspicion turned into absolute certainty. He and Ethan as a child looked as if they were cast from the same mold. Sarah paid it no mind, taking the superhero action figure from her bag and handing it to Chloe. This fell out of my husband's pocket during the day. Returning it to its rightful owner so you don't always fixate on other things. Chloe hadn't even gotten angry. But the reader comments started blasting first. What do you mean other things? Even belongs to our great Chloe. This superhero action figure is the bond between Ethan and Leo. What does Sarah know? Exactly. Why does Sarah sound so sarcastic now? It would be best if her own words poisoned her. But I actually think Sarah has a point. After all, Ethan is still her husband. It was rare for someone to speak up for Sarah, but they were immediately lambasted by others, their comments almost vanishing from sight. Oh, right. I forgot to introduce you. This is my wife, Sarah. Ethan smiled as he introduced Sarah to Chloe. Completely oblivious to the woman's glare that seemed to wish Sarah 1,000 cuts, Chloe stood up from the stool and then accidentally tumbled into Ethan's arms again. Before could say anything, Chloe scrambled out of his arms. Mrs. Ethan, please don't misunderstand. My foot just fell asleep. Please don't argue with Dr. Ethan over this. I would feel so guilty. Why should our Chloe apologize? When she was pregnant with Ethan's child, Sarah was probably still washing dishes in some diner. When will Ethan realize that Sarah is only after his money and doesn't actually love him? Seeing this, Sarah finally understood that everything in the reader comments was true. As remained silent, Chloe cried even harder. Ethan, uncharacteristically, hardened his expression towards Sarah. Sarah, there's truly nothing going on between Chloe and me. This is only our second time meeting. Don't jump to conclusions. Sarah collected herself and subtly hooked her arm around Ethan's. How could I? I was just thinking. This little boy looks so much like you. Could he be your illegitimate child? Ethan's eyes widened, and the reader comments began to scroll frantically. The inevitable plot point has arrived. Go crazy, Sarah. Let completely despise you. You crazy old hag who can't even lay an egg. Sarah, are you doubting me? I can swear to heaven, I've only ever been with one woman in my life, you, and she's a single mother with a child. How can you be so malicious in your... Ethan's face was taut, his expression frighteningly grim. The reader comments were all mocking Sarah, saying she was about to become a discarded wife, but wasn't afraid. She smiled and put her arm around Ethan's shoulder. It was just a joke. Don't I know what kind of person you are? Ethan's anger subsided with Sarah's single sentence, and he apologized to Chloe on Sarah's behalf. My wife is very direct because of her work. Sometimes her words can be easily misunderstood. Sarah stood beside Ethan, watching Chloe's face turn from pale to flushed. On the way home, Ethan drove while comforting Sarah. I know you didn't mean any harm at the hospital, but why would you think I have an illegitimate child out there? I promised you we'd be dinks forever, whether we have kids or not. It doesn't matter. Sarah turned to look at him. What if you want a child later? After all, the reader comments said he particularly loved children. It's up to you. If you like kids, we can adopt one. Sarah didn't say anything more. She just touched the scar on her lower abdomen. In truth, there had once been a child here. The bond between Ethan and Chloe wasn't something Sarah could sever with a few words. Even if Sarah applied for remote work, Chloe still found a way to get close to Ethan. She simply moved into the house next door. She even specially made Ethan's favorite shrimp boil, and with Leo, knocked on Sarah's door. Hello, I'm your new neighbor. Dr. Ethan? I can't believe you're my neighbor. Chloe naturally entered the house and enthusiastically invited Ethan to eat. She completely ignored Sarah, who was lying on the couch. Sarah remained silent, quietly watching Chloe make a scene. Ethan seemed a bit flustered. But with Leo repeatedly calling him Dad, he eventually sat down at the dining table. Under's longing gaze, the peeled shrimp boil was fed into Sarah's mouth by Ethan. The reader comments turned sour again. Why does Sarah get the first bite? Chloe worked so hard to make this meal, and Ethan treats her like this? Don't worry. It just means Ethan has been properly trained. In the end, Chloe will be the one enjoying the benefits. The shrimp boil in Sarah's mouth suddenly lost its flavor. Sarah got up and sat at the dining table. Chloe acted as if she hadn't seen Sarah, only serving food to Ethan. The child couldn't sit still and spilled his water, splashing it all over Ethan. Chloe immediately grabbed some tissues and half knelt to wipe him down. The position, however, looked intimate no matter how you saw it. The reader comments began to ship Ethan and Chloe's interaction again. Sarah picked up her untouched bottled water and splashed it all over Chloe. "Oh dear. I didn't mean to. You don't mind, do you? Playing the innocent act, who couldn't do that?" Chloe stood there awkwardly, her pleading gaze directed at Ethan. This was the strong female lead the reader comments spoke of, aspiring for freedom. When trouble arose, she only knew how to turn to a man for help. But clearly, Ethan fell for it. He pressed his lips together and escorted the mother and son to the door. He turned around and immediately questioned Sarah. "What's gotten into you lately? It feels like you're always targeting them, the mother and son." Sarah looked up at Ethan. "If really is your child, would you divorce me?" He looked puzzled, but his tone softened considerably. "Is this still about the child?" "Not entirely. It was mainly the predictions from the reader comments that made Sarah unable to stop overthinking. We won't get divorced. Even if we did, I would be leaving with nothing." Sarah was touched by his words, and the tension she felt eased slightly. Everything was Chloe's initiative. Ethan was just a good-natured person trying to help. Sarah couldn't let the reader comments bias her view of his interactions with Chloe yet. The truth was, Sarah had underestimated the plot's influence. The next day, Ethan came home late for the first time. When finished her takeout and went for a walk downstairs in the neighborhood, she happened to see Leo holding one of his hands and Chloe holding the other. Doesn't Sarah seem a bit pitiful? Ethan hasn't even divorced her yet. Isn't he going too far? Get it straight. This is immoral literature. Of course, there has to be infidelity in marriage. A single man after divorce is no fun at all. Sarah silently clenched her fists and used her phone to capture the scene. After all, video evidence of infidelity was the most powerful proof to make him leave with nothing. Sarah didn't immediately confront them. She pretended nothing had happened and went home. When returned, he didn't cook for Sarah as he usually did. Instead, he was humming childish nursery rhymes, looking exceptionally happy. When asked why, he was silent for a long time. Finally, he said he had gone to a kindergarten activity with Leo. "I happened to be free that afternoon, so I just helped out a bit. The kid doesn't have a dad. It's quite pitiful," Sarah hummed in response, continuing to watch her TV drama. She appeared not to care, but in reality, her mind was filled with images of him and Chloe standing together, looking like a family. This was the first time Ethan hadn't reported his whereabouts. He even hesitated when Sarah proactively asked him about it. That night, he seemed to try to express his sincerity by touching Sarah, but had her back to Ethan, resisting his closeness. They fell into a brief cold war. Just as Sarah was about to propose divorce, Ethan offered her an olive branch. "Tomorrow is our 5th wedding anniversary. Can we stop fighting?" Sarah's nose stung, and she held back tears. "Then you have to prepare a surprise for me." He smiled and said okay, handing Sarah the freshly made sandwich before changing into his clothes and leaving for work. All day, Sarah felt disoriented. She couldn't even write her article draft. She just had a feeling something big was about to happen, until stormed through the door, yelling furiously at Sarah. "Didn't I tell you? I was just with them for a kindergarten activity. There's nothing between Chloe and me. Do you really have to go around spreading rumors that she's the other woman and Leo is my illegitimate child? Do you have any idea that Chloe already suffers from depression? If I hadn't gotten there in time, she would have really tried to commit suicide by cutting her wrists." Sarah's hanging heart finally died. It took a long time for Sarah to find her voice again. "What do you mean I spread rumors? I've been home this whole time. I haven't done anything." Ethan sneered. "You come from a journalism background. Isn't manipulating public opinion what you do best? It's thanks to Leo remembering my phone number and calling me that I was able to rush back in time to give her emergency treatment. She's recuperating at home right now. You need to go apologize immediately, and then clarify the facts in front of all our neighbors." Sarah's heart grew colder with each of Ethan's accusations, but still held onto a last shred of hope for him. "Do you even remember what today is?" Ethan's expression stiffened, and he finally pursed his lips, grumbling discontentedly. "I know it's our wedding anniversary, but a human life is more important. If I don't resolve this, how can I be in the mood to celebrate? It's just a lousy wedding anniversary. What's there to celebrate? Just get divorced already. Sarah is so annoying. Good thing Chloe inserted herself into the situation. With her bitter stratagem, Ethan's heart has completely shifted to her, but I think Chloe went a bit too far. Wasn't Sarah supposed to frame her later? This is called striking first to gain the upper hand, is allowed to frame her. But Chloe isn't allowed to take the initiative? Why be so double-standard? The reader comments started arguing again. Sarah ignored them, stating word by word to Ethan, "I'll go see Chloe, but not to apologize. Sarah would personally seek justice from her." Seeing agree. Ethan's expression softened slightly. "You know, it's not easy for a single mother and her child. Just apologize for this. And if we take care of them more in the future, it'll pass. You're a journalist. You should set an example. Don't spread groundless rumors." On the way, Ethan didn't forget to lecture Sarah from his moral high ground. Sarah listened perfunctorily, her gaze fixed on the reader comments floating in the air. When they arrived at Chloe's house, Ethan used his key to open the door and led Sarah into the bedroom. The woman was lying on the bed, looking utterly pitiful. "Apologize properly. Don't say anything sarcastic." Ethan left Sarah in the bedroom, not forgetting to remind her before he left. After he left, Sarah looked at Chloe on the bed and got straight to the point. "I know Leo is Ethan's child. You don't need to put on an act for me. I'm divorcing Ethan." Chloe said nothing, her gaze falling on Sarah's phone. In front of her, Sarah turned off her phone. Seeing that Sarah wasn't secretly recording, Chloe finally revealed her true colors. "Since you already know, then be quick about it and make room for me and my child. Otherwise, I'll have to resort to more tricks, which would be quite troublesome." The reader comments were unanimously praising Chloe. "This is our brave and resourceful strong female lead. Well done, Sarah. Just disappear already. We just want to see Ethan, who feigns disinterest while truly caring, blush and have his heart race because of Chloe." Sarah looked at her and said blandly, "But the child was carried via surrogacy by you. You stole Ethan's sperm from the cold storage. He wasn't a willing participant. What's more, he and I are legally married." Thanks to the reader comments, Sarah knew all of this without having to go to the hospital to verify. Chloe seemed to lack normal morals. Her face was full of disdain. She didn't care in the slightest about being the other woman. "So what if you're married? You haven't had a child in 5 years. Just because you can't give birth doesn't mean I can't. I'm still young. If Ethan needs it, I can bear him many more children. There's no love between you two at all. He and I are true love." She sneered at Sarah. "Besides, you slut who's been slept with by countless men, what right do you have to defile Ethan?" Sarah narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" Chloe smiled triumphantly and waved her phone. "Exactly what it sounds like. Your mom was a whore, and you're no better. With breasts that big, you must have been groped by plenty of men, right?" A buzzing erupted in Sarah's mind. An intense fury immediately swept through her body. Before could even think of how to respond, her body had already lunged toward Chloe. Sarah straddled her, her hands fiercely gripping Chloe's neck. The door was left open, and Ethan, who had been constantly monitoring them, darted forward, directly pushing Sarah to the ground. Her head slammed hard against the corner of the cabinet. A sharp pain assaulted her, and Sarah felt a warm liquid trickle down her forehead. Sarah clutched her wound, but everything in front of her began to blur. Ethan ignored Sarah, softly comforting the crying Chloe. Only after the woman calmed down did he have time to address Sarah. "You came here to apologize, not to add fuel to the fire." Sarah leaned against the wall. After calling for emergency medical help, she also called the police station. "I'm reporting attempted murder. The address is..." Before she could finish, Ethan snatched her phone and hung up. "Are you crazy? You're calling the police for something like this?" Chloe, hiding in Ethan's arms, smirked triumphantly at Sarah. Sarah picked up her phone and threw it directly at Chloe's face. Ethan's expression grew even fouler. "You're still hitting her. You truly never learn. If you keep causing trouble, we're getting divorced." With a sharp smack, Sarah slapped him. Her hand went numb from the impact. Finally, she chuckled lightly and replied, "Fine." The ambulance arrived quickly. When arrived at the hospital, she was sluggish in answering questions. It took her almost 10 seconds to respond to each question. The doctor's diagnosis was a concussion, infidelity, domestic violence even if they divorced. Sarah could still gain a lot from Ethan. The reader comments were right. Sarah was only after his money. If had talked to Sarah nicely, Sarah might not have let go of Ethan, but she just had to insult Sarah's deceased mother. No one could call Sarah's mother a whore. Sarah's mother was born in a mountain village that favored sons over daughters and never had a chance to go to school. In her teens, her biological parents forced her to go out and work. She was naive and had never tasted kindness from others. Finally, she was deceived into giving her body away by a trivial kindness. When the man saw she was pregnant, he packed his things and ran off overnight. The factory wouldn't hire pregnant women. She had no choice but to resort to sex work to support Sarah. Originally, Sarah could have depended on her mother for life, but that man came back. He was deeply in debt, yet he demanded Sarah's mother pay it back. During the argument, both of them fell down the stairs. Sarah only remembered the moon that night was very red as the blood flowing from Sarah's mother's body. After she recovered, the police came to take Sarah's statement. Even then, Ethan still thought Sarah was making a mountain out of a molehill. I pushed you because you were being violent towards Chloe. It wasn't intentional. You're calling the police over something so minor? Are you ever going to let this go? Ethan believed he hadn't done anything wrong, but the way his doctor colleagues looked at him could no longer be described as mere contempt. The police even expelled him from the hospital room for obstructing official duties. After taking her statement, they told Sarah that the best course of action now was divorce. It was exactly what Sarah had been thinking. Sarah pointed to the woman outside the room. I also want to report her for defamation and spreading false rumors about me. I trust you will clear my name. Over-the-top romance novels might not understand the law, but Sarah did. The police worked quickly, tracing back the timeline, and soon found the person who had spread the rumors. It was an old woman in her 60s. Sarah hadn't even spoken to her in the neighborhood. Upon questioning, the police discovered she was simply paid to do it, and the person who paid her was none other than Chloe, who claimed to be the victim. Ethan had said one thing that was spot on. Sarah was a journalist, and manipulating public opinion was her specialty. Sarah connected his domestic violence and Chloe's defamation, seeking help from the media, a husband's infidelity, colluding with the other woman to plot against his wife for her property and even her life. Sarah was just an innocent, pitiful woman. Public opinion fermented quickly. Someone even dug up the hospital where Ethan worked. He was temporarily suspended. Ethan stormed into Sarah's hospital room to confront her. Sarah, what exactly do you think you're doing? Nothing. Just clearing my name. You should have seen by now that the rumors were self-orchestrated by Chloe. Chloe also arrived, crying and claiming she was temporarily possessed by a demon, begging Sarah to let her go. My child is still so young. How can you let him suffer cyberbullying too? He hardly knew how to read. How could he possibly be cyberbullied? But of all people, felt pity. You need to take down those news reports right now, or we're getting divorced. Why should I? She was the one who framed me first. I'm just giving her a taste of her own medicine. As my husband, shouldn't you be on my side? Ethan's face was grim. He couldn't utter a single word of rebuttal. Sarah didn't say anything more to provoke him. I want a divorce, but you'll be leaving with nothing. As long as you can do that, I'll withdraw the lawsuit and won't discuss these matters online. The reader comments exploded. Is really going to divorce? Didn't they say she'd never let go of Ethan's hand even if she died? Leaving with nothing? What will Chloe and Ethan do then? My heart aches for Chloe. Am I the only one who thinks Sarah's attack first, then be polite approach is awesome? Leaving a scumbag and getting a huge sum of money she can do whatever she wants later without anyone telling her what to do. Divorce? You want to divorce me? If it weren't for me back then, would you have been able to successfully complete your studies? And now, because of this small matter, you want to divorce me? Sarah, where is your conscience? It was Ethan who constantly brought up divorce, yet when Sarah proposed it, he was the one who broke down. Sarah touched her lower abdomen. But what I owed you, I repaid long ago. Ethan and Sarah met in college. After her mother passed away, Sarah was temporarily placed in an orphanage. Through her own efforts and the financial assistance of kind people, Sarah was able to get into college. To earn tuition, Sarah used all her spare time to work part-time jobs. It was then that Ethan started pursuing Sarah. Sarah didn't know what he saw in her, but she knew that whenever he spent time with her, a few guys would be laughing nearby. One guess was enough to know it was a bet among rich kids. Sarah didn't reject Ethan's pursuit, being with him. Sarah could eat all sorts of expensive food without spending a single penny. Sometimes he would even send Sarah money. Scamming people like him, Sarah felt no guilt whatsoever. It was simply a mutually beneficial arrangement. Sarah initially thought this game would end in a few months. But Ethan seemed to have taken it seriously. He strictly forbade his unscrupulous friends from mentioning the bet to Sarah. And he even proposed to her after graduation. He had money, and he was good to Sarah. Sarah had no reason not to accept later. Sarah seemed to have gotten into character too. She liked him a little bit. When she found out she was pregnant, Sarah suddenly realized that he was the first person she wanted to share the news with. When she went to the hospital to find him, she happened to encounter a hospital disturbance. Sarah had always thought of herself as a selfish person. Compared to Ethan, Sarah should have loved herself the most, but when Sarah saw the middle-aged man secretly pull out a knife from his pocket, she instinctively shielded Ethan. The sharp knife tip pierced directly through Sarah's uterus. Sarah had a miscarriage, and the hospital told her she would never be able to get pregnant again in her life. Her lower abdomen was left with a scar because of it. When woke up, Ethan held her and cried, saying they would still have children in the future, but had already heard everything the doctor said. After being discharged from the hospital, Ethan told Sarah that he was actually a DINK, that it was fine not to have children. Later, he underwent a vasectomy, but he still had a lingering thought and had a significant amount of sperm frozen at the hospital. This was also why Chloe was able to conceive Ethan's child through IVF. Thinking of this, Sarah looked at Ethan again. "You did give me a lot of money, but I also saved your life. I don't owe you anything anymore." Ethan said nothing, his fingers unconsciously twisting the corner of his clothes, but under Chloe's pleas, he gritted his teeth and agreed to Sarah's demands. "Okay, I agree." The reader comments erupted in virtual fireworks, celebrating Ethan's escape from the misery of being with Sarah. Great. Sarah is finally going offline. The plot is finally on track. We'll soon see some sweet romantic scenes. Sarah pulled out the divorce papers she had prepared long ago. Sign them. Ethan hadn't expected Sarah to have even this ready. He signed furiously, then took Chloe and left. He didn't visit Sarah once until she was discharged from the hospital, but didn't care, leisurely making her way home. After only 10 odd days away, the house had a new mistress. Chloe watched Sarah as if facing a formidable enemy. The reader comments scrolled again. "I knew it. How could Sarah possibly give up on Ethan, such a prime stock, so easily? Sure enough, she's causing trouble for our darling while Ethan is at work, so annoying. Can just disappear completely? Why are you here again? Haven't you learned your lesson?" Sarah ignored her, looking at the drastically changed house, and her last bit of hope completely vanished. All the items in the house had been chosen by Ethan and Sarah together at a physical store. Yet after only 10 odd days in the hospital, the place had transformed into something another woman liked. Even the pothos plant on the balcony had been replaced with tulips. Entering the master bedroom, Sarah's belongings were scattered haphazardly on the floor. The walls were covered in messy scribbles made with lipstick by a child. Fortunately, the gold jewelry and designer goods hadn't been touched. Sarah carried those items and walked back into the living room. "The one who should leave is you, isn't it? Ethan has already signed the divorce papers, agreeing to leave with nothing. This house is naturally mine as well." Chloe started crying again. "Sarah, if you must blame someone, blame me. It's all my fault for falling for Dr. Ethan. I shouldn't have appeared before you because of this affection, but now that you're divorced, can't you give me a chance to pursue Dr. Ethan?" The reader comments started spoiling the plot. Sarah definitely won't realize that Ethan is standing right outside the door at this moment. Overhearing's confession, Ethan and Chloe's feelings are definitely going to heat up. "We've waited so long, we can finally fast forward to the adult scenes." It was that trick again. Sarah was tired of watching, but Chloe still hadn't had enough of her act this time. Ethan didn't blindly believe her. Instead, he looked at Sarah with red-rimmed eyes. "Let's talk properly. For the sake of the property deed and the jewelry." Sarah agreed. At the coffee shop, Ethan skillfully ordered Sarah a cappuccino. Sarah took a sip. It tasted the same as before, only the person had changed. He pursed his lips, his guilty gaze falling on Sarah. "I apologize for pushing you earlier, and for misunderstanding your accusations against Chloe." Sarah looked at him. Not everything can be smoothed over with just an apology. Ethan was silent for a long time. Then, his voice trembling, he pleaded with Sarah, "There are still more than 10 days left in the divorce cooling-off period. Can you really not give me another chance?" "I'd like to give you a chance, but what about you? Chloe has been living here all this time. Are you still going to claim that was for my sake? I'm your wife, yet you didn't trust me. You believed a woman you'd only known for a few days. Is that what you call loving me? And that child? Do you honestly not know what's going on?" As his last words fell, all color drained from Ethan's face. Chloe was just an ordinary person. How could she have accidentally gotten Ethan's sperm without anyone's help? When wasn't suspended, he was a department head at the hospital. Identifying sperm donors and such was a piece of cake for him, but I truly never thought about acknowledging that child. Ethan frustratingly ran his hand through his hair, looking at Sarah with pleading eyes. I just wanted to leave a legacy for myself. I didn't want this to completely break us apart. Later, I don't know what happened to me whenever I saw that mother and son. I just wanted to get close to them, to take care of them. What is Ethan doing? In the plot, his true love should be Chloe, exactly. How could he betray Chloe and instead try to please and beg a villainous Sarah? Is breaking through the plot's control and developing self-awareness? The words in the reader comments seem to be trying to whitewash Ethan, but wouldn't forgive him so? Is that your reason for deceiving me? You certainly had good intentions towards me, Sarah retorted sarcastically, and Ethan's tears finally fell. He seemed not to want to show such a pathetic sight in front of Sarah, and he vigorously wiped away his tears. Believe it or not, back then, I truly felt like I was being pushed by some mysterious force towards Chloe, and now, why are you actively trying to win me back now? You're the one who pushed me into a concussion. You're the one who told me not to spread rumors about Chloe. Are you saying none of that was your doing? Back then, your mind was completely filled with Chloe. Now you say you love me. Don't you find that disgusting? Sarah stood up, looking down at him. Stop making excuses for your emotional infidelity. Without that mysterious force, you would still have gravitated towards Chloe. After all, she bore you a son. After saying this, Sarah left without looking back. Thankfully, things became clear just in time. Even though Sarah's heart was still aching, it was better than being stuck in an inescapable quagmire. I didn't expect Ethan to already know Leo was his child. Had he been planning this for years? But wasn't he so in love with Sarah back then? Suddenly, I feel like Sarah didn't do anything wrong. She was the one who was deceived. Apologies for our earlier harsh words. What good was apologizing now? A bunch of fair-weather friends, ready to switch sides at the drop of a hat when they were spewing hate at Sarah before. They didn't hold back a single curse word. Ethan finally left. The moving company Sarah contacted had also arrived downstairs. Sarah returned home and kicked Chloe and that child out. Sarah also put the house up for sale online. When it was time to get the divorce decree, Sarah and Ethan met at the county clerk's office. Ethan still wouldn't give up. Even if we divorce, we can still be friends, right? Sarah stared at him, incredulous. Are you insane? A proper ex should never cross paths with you again. Besides, those 2 pieces of baggage are still waiting for you. Sarah pointed to the adult and child not far away, stepping back a few paces to avoid any association. Sarah didn't know if it was because of the divorce or for some other reason, but the reader comments completely disappeared. It all felt like Sarah's own delusion. But with the divorce decree in hand, Sarah was finally rid of that jerk. After the house sold, Sarah applied to her company for relocation for work and moved to Riverwood. When's boss approved her request, she asked, "Are you really divorced?" Sarah paused, realizing she was referring to Ethan. Sarah softly hummed an affirmation. After all, she had asked Sarah a few years prior if Sarah wanted to be relocated for work, with double the salary and significant promotion potential. At the time, Sarah refused without consulting Ethan. Sarah always felt that since they were married, they should stay close, so it wouldn't feel like a long-distance relationship. But now, all Sarah wanted was to make money. Men would deceive Sarah, but money wouldn't. Sarah saw Ethan again 2 years later. On the news, Sarah's colleague had written the news article. He was dead. He had fallen from a building with Chloe and died. The year after Sarah's divorce, he finally got together with Chloe, but had lost his job, and all his savings from those years had gone to Sarah. They lived a very frugal life. Ethan could only turn to his parents for help. Ethan's parents gave him money to start over, but Chloe spent it all. Chloe was never the type to endure hardship. After a huge fight, Chloe went to a bar to drown her sorrows. She was preyed upon while intoxicated by Mark, who had secretly admired her for years, and ended up pregnant with a child that wasn't Ethan's, but didn't know. He thought the child Chloe was carrying was his own. They reconciled because of it. Ethan found a new hospital. Although the pay wasn't as good as his previous job, he had the skills, and after a few more years, he would surely make something of himself. So he worked to support the family, while Chloe secretly met other men at home. Doing things like that too often, they were bound to be exposed. After found out he wanted to divorce Chloe, the woman angrily blurted out that the child wasn't his and told him to go ahead and divorce her. After much arguing, Ethan eventually resorted to violence. During their struggle, they both fell from the building. The disappeared reader comments reappeared, like the final burst of brilliance after fireworks explode. How could Ethan and Chloe die? And by killing each other. The couple I shipped ended up tragically, so was the one who had the last laugh. Is this what they call no man in your heart, and your blade becomes divine? Sarah paid no attention to them. Sarah's life, naturally, was hers to control. No one could control Sarah's future.